Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the League of Logic podcast where you can learn how to think for yourself. Before we get started in our conversation today, we'd like to invite you to check out our website, leagueoflogic.com, leagueoflogic.com. On that website, you can find some study tools and some resources to help you along your journey in the search for truth. Also on that website, we've got a Contact Us page. You can reach out to us with questions or comments, correct us on something. If you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you guys. We really appreciate it. We're also on all the social media platforms, Truth Social, Facebook, X, Rumble. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you got to do to keep up with the channel and help us get the word out. That would be greatly appreciated. We've got a special one for you this morning, so we sit back and relax and get ready for another conversation on truth. Happening, folks? What's happening, y'all? How y'all doing today?
You were off today, man.
I've been off for 2 weeks in a row. I don't know what we're going to do. We need to fire me and find somebody else.
That's probably right. Better. We got Mark Hall in the house today.
That's right.
We'll
be
all right.
Yeah, that's our saving grace. Special guest. Good to have you with us, Brother Mark. How are you doing today?
We're good, and we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm going to push it a little microphone just a little bit closer. I can turn you up too just to make sure. Did I get a turn? Just say a test in it.
There you go, test.
There it is. There we can hear him. All right.
First test I passed.
Yeah. That's right. I don't always pass that test either.
Right on the curve.
Y'all have a good week this week?
Yes, sir.
We have. It's been a real good week.
It's a lot of rain. We needed that bad, right?
No.
Yeah, we needed it. I got a couple septic systems that are supposed to go in, but I also had some yard work done where the guys came in and added a little parking pad beside our driveway, and so they tore up the grass. He brought a bunch of like leftover sod or something and put down.
And it's mush?
And, well, no, he was like, you need to water it twice a day for a week. And I was like, man, that's what in the world? So I'm glad the rain came and saved me time moving the sprinkler. All right, so we do have a special guest, Brother Mark Hall, and he's from the Hope Center, which my wife and I, we believe in it wholeheartedly. It's a wonderful ministry, and we think it's just worth any of y'all's consideration into just seeing what you could do to be a part of it, and whether it's through your church or you as an individual or even a business owner, man, it's really good. And that's ultimately the goal that we're trying to get through for this podcast is just an introduction to the ministry and to show you how you can plug in and partner with Hope Center. And so, Brother Mark, we're glad you're here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're glad to be here. And, when I share the story of Hope Center, I don't feel like I have to sell the ministry.
No,
it's
sir.
conversations like this. And when people like both of y'all, when you witness and experience our men and women out in the community, that's what does it.
Yep.
Mark Hall doesn't have to. It's getting the men and women out there.
We're still going to let you do most of the talking today, though.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can tell you from experience that it's the Hope Centers doesn't just help people, individuals. It makes a positive impact on communities.
Yeah.
It really does.
That's a big part of it and all, because it's two-sided. We can dispel a lot of the myths. Mm-hmm. And what happens oftentimes, and when people experience and they hear just so honestly and truthful from the ones whose lives have been changed through Christ, I believe he uses Hope Center as a vessel to do that. They start reflecting and examining their own lives.
Yes.
I think it's affecting communities. It's affecting businesses.
Well, just start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and your role at the Hope Center, and then what got you involved with them in the first place.
As far as my role, it sounds bigger than it really is. I serve as vice president of partner relations, which I think I've got the best job at Hope Center. I'm not having to be involved with the day-to-day operations of some of the centers, which oftentimes requires carrying fire extinguishers around to put out fires.
All right, yeah.
I get to talk about how the Lord's working in the communities, in the families, and most importantly, in the lives of the ones that walk through the doors of Hope Center. And all. Then I share about, the foundation of it is a life in Christ, is coming to know Christ through the whole entire process. And I I have a heart here in North Carolina because I've lived here since 1989. This is my home, and this is where my own experience started at with my walk with Christ. But I get to work all over the country and, in fact, all over the globe with Hope Center. We have some centers in Thailand and in Belize. I was there a couple of weeks ago. And we have some in Ukraine as well as Israel we have some interest in. We have 51 centers here in the U.S. And we have the 4 centers here in North Carolina. We're getting ready to open a 5th one down in Dunn, North Carolina. I take that back. We did just open one in Maiden, North Carolina. So I can say now 6.
Wow.
And all. But I became familiar with Hope Center about 5 years ago. And it was right when I came home from a 10-year vacation in with the state of North Carolina and some of the most secured gated
all inclusive, right?
North Carolina, yes, it was all inclusive. Better known as a 10-year prison sentence. But one of the things that got me really entrenched and connected and heartfelt for what I get to do, I don't look at it as a job. I look at it as a true calling that I just have the pleasure of being able to show up and try to fulfill that calling. But I came from a wonderful life. You would maybe say it was a life of privilege, and then I got into some trouble. I crossed the line, and I was guilty as homemade sin, and I went away to prison for 10 years. But some of the things I learned when I was away, first off, those few weeks before I went away, I was finally at a point where I would listen to others talk about Christ and how Christ had worked in their lives and how Christ had gotten them through brokenness. My brokenness was self-imposed. I caused that. But many of the folks I talked to didn't. They talked about how Christ helped to restore their lives. And so I went away, and one of the things I learned is that many of the men that I was away with never would have been in there if it had not been for addictive behavior. It's not about going out and taking the copper wire out of houses.
Right.
Or catalytic converters. It's about somebody in the community to feed that addiction. Somebody's buying those.
Right.
And it was that behavior that placed them there. And then the other thing I learned is that many of the men there, if it had not been for 5 or 10 minutes, I call them members of the Bad Day Club. There was 5 or 10 minutes in their life that got completely out of control. It might have been anger, or it might have been trying to prove their manhood. And something happened. And oftentimes a life was lost. And they're the ones that have many of the long sentences there because of the destruction of their crime. And then the third was, one of the things I also realized is that many of the men in there never had the opportunities, never had one more door open to them, never had one more job opportunity open for them. And so when I got to the end of my prison sentence, I was blessed enough to be able to do my work release at the Durham Rescue Mission. And that really is what brought me into the fold of trying to help. And I learned about Hope Center. There was only one employee in North Carolina at that time. And he and I started talking, and I wasn't looking for a job, but one thing led to another. And it's been a wonderful, it's been about 3.5, 4 years that I've been with him. And the ministry is, it's really having an impact.
How long has Hope Center been around in the first place? When did it? Do you know?
Hope Center started 17 years ago. Started in 2007. I think it's 17 years. Started in Waverly, Tennessee. Started by our founder and pastor, a guy named Josh Hanna. And Josh is still fairly young. I think he's probably 46, 47 years old. Young pastor. Came from a pretty rowdy background and some pretty rowdy friends. And he came to know the Lord and was called into ministry. And he went to a small church in Waverly, Tennessee, and grew that church actually into a network of churches called Compassion. And he had a friend. The way it started, he had a friend named Carson Plant, who is now our director of national operations here. He had a friend that he grew up with, childhood friend. He was visiting him in the local detention center and witnessing to him and sharing with him about the Lord. And Carson asked him if he'd come to court next week and advocate for him. And so they went into court, and Carson was looking at some time, and the judge said, "Well, Pastor Hanna, we won't send him to prison, but how about if we send him home with you on house release for a year?" And so Carson came and lived in his house, and Carson was actually here in Johnson County this past week. I was showing him all that's taken place and all, but that's how it started. If you look at our staff, we have about 160 staff across across the ministry, over 50% of the staff are men and women who walked through the doors themselves.
Wow.
As
impressive.
residents.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Yep.
You want those with lived experiences to be sharing and encouraging the next.
I want to come back to that in a minute too, because I was going to ask about career opportunities for people that wanted to join and help work. But so is Hope Center, what makes it different than just like a rehab facility? It's not a detox facility, right?
No, it's not a detox facility. It's what I call post immediate crisis. For example, we work with detox centers.
Mm-hmm.
We work with the medical community because detox often needs medical supervision, particularly coming off alcoholism and some other things. But the way it works is if somebody reaches out to me or anybody and they have a loved one that they're wanting to have come there, what I'll do is share a little bit about Hope Center, and then I'll get them connected with their admissions coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
That admissions coordinator does a great job with sort of vetting the process, finding out where that person is, what type of medications they may be on now for normal health situations. Is detox needed? What are their legal issues? Legal issues doesn't stop somebody from coming to Hope Center. None of these things do, but it's a matter of getting a real handle on how to deliver the services. And then they come into Hope Center, and like I said, we'll help them through detox. We'll work with them. We'll work with their loved ones. If the court needs to be involved, we'll work with them. We'll work with doctors to get them in a good place where they can walk in. And one of the things that makes it different is we are not a medically assisted treatment center. Mm-hmm. We work with those that provide medical assistance, medical assisted treatment, but you still have to be off of that medical assistance before you walk through the doors. And sometimes that takes a while to get them to a healthy spot where they can do that. But I look at Hope Center as really, it doesn't just necessarily have to be for the addict who suffer from the grips of alcoholism and drug addiction. It's about rebuilding a life. You can take somebody who's been drinking every day of their life and staying intoxicated and put them in a closet for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
You go and open the door a year, you know what it's going to be. It's going to be a sober person. But then what?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do they have sustainability?
Right.
Do they have employment opportunities? Do they have relationships in the community?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about trying to rebuild that. I know that during my journey, those relationships in the communities, the ones that walked with me and the ones that have come alongside me during that time, that's been such a big help. And I believe God puts the right people in your pathway if you're only seeking that pathway.
Yeah. That's one of the things that's interesting to me, that talking about that. What is the first thing that what is the Hope Center around as far as introducing these people? Is it jobs or what? Or
it's Christ-centered.
It's Christ.
That's first and foremost.
That's the big thing.
The Bible talks a lot about work, doesn't it? Talks a lot about money too.
Yes.
I should have listened to it 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But, one of the things that makes it different is when you come into this program, you're going to be there. You're going to be doing something. No one's held against their will. It's not a place just to go.
It's all voluntary. Yeah.
There's programs out there, and I won't name them and all, but there's lots of programs out there where you just go and you're pampered and you're taken care of. You're going to be taken care of, and every need that you have is going to be met, but you've got to do your part.
Right.
One of the things I learned when I was away and in the state prison system and afterwards and involved in some now, it's always, what can you give me? What can you give me? How do I get that next check? How do I get that next handout? And when you come into Hope Center, after you've been there 30 to 45 days, you're going to be involved in what we call vocational training.
Yep.
That's going into the workplace. Mm-hmm. That's showing up on time. That's performing your task to get you in a position to be that A1 hire when you've been doing that for 10 months. And it's like I said, our men and women stay busy all the time. They're loved on, they're taken care of, but it's what I would call an active program. It's not passive recovery. Sometimes people look at passive recovery.
Right.
It's completely different.
We have one particular family member that I'm thinking of particularly who has been in and out of different rehab facilities we've tried to help with, but I never knew about Hope Center, and from all different states, Virginia, Florida, all over in Boca Raton, and they all seem to have the same pattern. And that is, you do stay in for your 30 to 90-day detox, and then they're going to put you somewhere. They call it a halfway house, which is a terrible name for something, after you think about it, halfway house. But the only really, that's just like hurry up and get well so you can go on. And they seeing how Hope Center functions as compared to what I've watched this individual go through, you think, man, it would have made a big difference. Hope Center and these places are so much different because of, it's just, they tell this this family member was you have to find something bigger than you to trust in, but they don't tell them what. Right. You can come up with whatever you want to, but find something bigger than you that you can put your trust in and your focus on. But with Hope Center, it's pretty much direct.
It's interesting you say halfway house in the back of my mind, and this is probably bad to say. I think if there are some halfway churches too.
There are some halfway churches. That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you what it makes me think of is you look at success rates, and can you tell us about the success rate that y'all have and how you go about defining that? What factors do you look at? What do you consider success?
There's two numbers that I look at often. And one is, what we measure post-graduation, 1 year out. And that's, active attendance with the church family, engagement with the church family, that's sobriety, and that's employment. And our success rate is very high. It fluctuates from 60 to about 68%. I know we've recently had a month where it was 68%. Another figure that I look at more often than that even is what we call our departure rate or retention rate. And it's a measurement that we take on each of our centers across the globe. It's a measurement from day one of the month and the last day of the month. And it'll have a departure rate, and it floats, it seems like, across our ministry around 16 to 18%. That's the number of people who are there on day one of the month that are not there at the end. They've left for various reasons, okay? Sometimes it's a family reason. It can be a lot of things. It's not always a disciplinary reason. It's also getting them sometimes to another type of program. We're unapologetically Christ-centered, and sometimes, I often hear within those first couple of weeks, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah.
But the one thing about the centers here, the local centers, the three we have in Wayne County, and now what's happening here in Johnston County, our departure rates are very low. We've been in the high single digits sometimes, and it usually floats around 11 or 12%. And I truly, truly believe the reason that our average is lower than elsewhere in the ministry is the opportunities that men and women are getting in this community, is the engagement with multiple churches in the community. It's not just a one church universe. It's a lot of churches. And the church isn't necessarily going in and attending a Wednesday night or Sunday morning. It's standing around a burn barrel at a Christmas tree lot at Amelia Church, in December.
That's where I grew up, was Amelia Church.
A lot of Jesus can be talked about around a burn barrel. And then I also think the employment opportunities, with the companies here in this area, like the Guy C. Lee's and the Stevens Sausages and the Comfort Shield HVAC and Shalco's and Kevin Dockery with his Eastfields complex and all, they're getting career opportunities. And when they come into the door on day one, oftentimes they're not looking for Jesus. What they're looking for is that hope. And when they can see somebody coming back to the Hope Center at the end of the day in their uniform from Guy C. Lee or they just got hired on full time at Stevens Sausage, and they're getting career advancement, and then they're getting back with their families. They're seeing the families out there on Friday nights, and they only wish they could be with their kids. That's what I call I call it stick and stay for the miracle. If it takes things like that, it's like sometimes church
meals. It could happen to me too, yeah.
If we put out a church meal, attendance is going to be good that day.
Right.
If that's what gets them to stick and stay for the miracle, I'm okay with it.
That's cool.
So what is the 12-month stay, voluntary, I would like to come. So two things. Is there like an interview process? Do you ever turn anybody away? And then two, what is the, 30 days of this, 6 months of this? What's the process while they're there for 12 months?
The process as far as coming into the program, as I said earlier, if somebody called me, I would share with them, and then I would get them in touch with our local admissions coordinator, a gentleman named Neil Dickerson, who is incredible. If there is a person, he's the one that was the first employee here in North Carolina, and now we still work together. But if there was somebody that I needed to have talk to my son or daughter whether it be on the street corner or in my living room, it would be Neil Dickerson. And he does the vetting process. He can talk to somebody one morning and they can be resting their head that night.
That's awesome.
Sometimes it's a 6-month process, because when they hear about it being 12 months and having to, a lot of times people think of it, I can't invest 12 months in it, but they've already invested years and trying.
It ain't working that way.
But he does the vetting process. One of the things is health and mobility. We don't have the accommodations in the program to address certain issues as far as physical mobility, but we have other programs that we will take them to.
I see.
And get them into. There's some wonderful programs out there, but probably, and I don't know what the exact percentage is, but probably 85% of the people that Neil talks to are eligible to come to Hope Center.
Awesome.
Should they choose to. That's the choice. They've got to be the ones that are willing and ready to do it.
And then once they're there, what's the steps that they go through for that?
We call it a 3-phase process. I hate to put things into categories like that, but they come into the program. Phase 1 is officially it's 30 days. Sometimes it might take a little longer depending on what their needs are. That 30 days is what I call the cooling off period. Number one, they come into the program and they're going into a structured program. They don't have a cell phone during that time. And one of the reasons for that, and that's a hard thing for people to get over.
Oh man,
we're all
addicted.
We're all tied to it. But one of the things for that is just to give them a time to focus and calm down and let the dust settle. And then it's also a time to let their loved one rest too.
Right.
That mom, that dad, that husband, whoever it is out there that was getting those phone calls all throughout the day. Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Or that fearful phone call,
right,
where they don't want to pick up the phone at night, and waiting to hear what situation their loved one's in. But that's also the time they start getting engaged. They get out, they get involved in the community. They go out and they're doing volunteer projects. And oftentimes people think, I have to convince people to go out and volunteer. But we don't. The culture is in place where they look forward to it. They go over, like the ladies at the local house here, they go over and they help feed a bird in her greenhouses. They'll go to help at the Hennett Center. They've helped with the Easter egg hunt at our church. They get involved and they want to do that. And then when they hit that second phase, that's when they actually go out to vocational training. And one of the things I don't want to do is we're not getting into the process of just sending a warm body out to fill a void. I experienced that with prison work release, where people were sent out and there was no future there. Right. And what we try to do during that 30 days is find out what their gifts, what their talents are, what their interest is. What would they be interested in, and get them placed with the right company, the right situation. And one of the things with the companies that we work with, I love it when there's local decision makers. We've got some national companies and all, and that's good because of the philosophy of the top management of it. But really the most important is that local management, that local decision maker, that they understand Hope Center. And then what happens is it's a reversal. They open the door because obviously they need a labor force. And then what happens is it even becomes more than just that. It's helped change the culture in some companies. Mm-hmm. They've been able to share with others, and you become the preferred provider of a pipeline. And I look at that pipeline as opportunities for those men and women. When they leave here, they can have insurance. They can have a good wage. They can take care of themselves, and they have a career. But that's that second phase. During all of this time, there's structure. There's daily Bible studies for the phase ones. These men and women, they start their day early. Some of the centers start as early as 4:30 a.m.
Wow.
And they get up. The phase ones take care of the house while everybody else is out doing their vocational training or working in the community. They take care of the houses. The houses stay in immaculate shape and things. And the purpose of that is when somebody's in a good environment, in a clean environment, and something that maybe they never expected, their standard moves up as well. As I said, during second phase, they're out there, they're with these employers. We also connect them if there's courses and certifications and things through the local community college that would help them to be better prepared when they're hired at phase 3. We get connected with those. There's life skills classes going on during that time. There's also individual counselings where we have volunteers that come in. These are lay counselors from the various churches and businesses that come in. And I call it kind of just being a listening ear, being a listening ear, but giving them biblical guidance behind the advice that they're giving. Phase 3, that's the last 2 months. They're a little more independent. At that time, they're W-2 employees of these companies if they have proven their mark. And I don't know what the statistics are, but I would say over 90% of them get an opportunity extended to them. And that's when they're earning a paycheck. That money is coming into their bank account. We've worked with them about getting set up with banking, with real banking, not a cash app or something like that,
Yeah.
but where they can walk into a bank and they can sit down, share their situation, say, here's my first paycheck. Let's get set up with direct deposit. So you start rebuilding that banking relationship, that credit relationship, and more importantly, doing things right relationship too. That's during the third phase. They get a little more independence. They can have their own car. They can have a cell phone during that time. And so it's getting them ready for post Hope Center. And when they do graduate and they walk across the stage, they receive the regular things like the certificate and all, and a gift from Hope Center. But they also receive a benevolence from Hope Center. They receive a cash gift or in the form of a check where they walk across there. And oftentimes, or at times, some of those vocational training places where they're employed at now have also added to the blessing. So when they leave there, the goal and the prayer is that they're equipped for the next step. And many of them have homes to go to. Many of them don't. We try to help them get set up with that. One of the things, as I said earlier, we do have graduates that are working for the ministry now. There are opportunities post Hope Center to an internship and apprenticeship program. Before you can be hired as a full-time staff member, you're paid during an apprenticeship. You have benefits and all. But you have to have at least 2 years of sobriety. You have to have some independent living. Your life can't be just sheltered in a Hope Center.
Right.
You have to have at least several months out there of living independently on your own. And then you can be hired on. And we have many of our staff members are folks that walk through the doors are directors and other folks now.
That's something.
That's cool. You mentioned counselors. Did you have to be licensed counselors, or you said lay counselors?
You can be, but you don't have to be.
Don't have to be.
These are lay counselors. And, if there's a higher degree of counseling that may be needed for major league mental health issues or things like that, a lot of that is vetted during that admissions process.
I see, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that someone can't come into the program and at least have access to that. The counseling that we value is that person in the community who will come in and share their faith, share their own personal experiences with them. And both sides grow. That counselor grows, and then that resident grows.
That's what I would say.
It becomes a partnership. It
Just
becomes
normal
a friendship.
people hanging out together.
That's it.
You're sharing love for Christ. Yeah.
That's it.
That's kind of a misconception too, that these houses, if you have one in your community and you want to go visit, you're free to at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people think that it's like a secured facility or whatever, but it's not. It's open to the community.
It's open. We encourage the community to be there, to be present, to see it and experience it for lots of reasons. It helps the residents who are sleeping there at night. It also helps that community. And you never know. It's amazing. I'll go and speak at a church or go somewhere, and there's always a story. Just like, like you've shared and others have shared, somebody in my family or even I personally. So it truly is. And I look at this house here in Wilson's Mills, that house, I look at that as a community's asset.
Right.
That house came about because of this community.
Yep. The doors are open for
That's
you
cool.
to get involved. That's really good. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great opportunity that is too. So that's a couple of thoughts I had on it. So, David, he's a wonderful mentor, right? I go talk to him all the time. David can show up and hang out. They're not required to go talk to David, but he's just there if they want to hang out, Is that different? So to me, that seems like less pressure than if you have someone who shows up with a suit and tie and a briefcase and starts writing down notes. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sitting on the couch.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very different. And, we have counselors that are out there once a week, twice a week on a regular basis. My wife, she's out there, I think 2 or 3 times a week, and she has they call them mentees, the ones that they are counseling throughout their entire journey. and they walk with them. But then the other thing too is we have people like David, like you and Julie. They show up, they know y'all. They're going to come up and they're going to, say Mr. David or Ms. Julie or the ones in the communities that the Ann and Dallies, just show up there just to visit.
Yeah.
That is key.
Awesome is that. So that, like when I first heard of Hope Center, I was like David. I mean, I thought it was just from past experience from family members going through different facilities. I thought it would be, this is a closed off facility. You have to like ask permission or make an appointment, but man, what an opportunity you have for churches or families to, if you want to practice being a witness, let's say, like great opportunity. And what we have experienced through it is, my wife and I are business owners, and we always try to, with her in particular, our business is trying to be more of a ministry than a business. We want to give people opportunities to have a safe place to work. And so when she heard about Hope Center, man, she was all on board. Hurry up and find out how we can help. And we've only been involved, a couple months now, maybe at the most. And I can already tell you that you go into it with the idea of we want to be a helpful and a ministry and a blessing to these ladies over here in Wilson's Mills. About 3 weeks in, you find out, wait a minute, this blessing is like working in both directions, and you've seen tremendous growth. The young lady that's coming in helping us out a little bit, she's extremely nervous, and am I sure you can do this? Just don't unsure of herself. And my wife steps in and talks with her for just a week. She don't even go anymore. She's up there, she's doing what she's supposed to do. And my wife's like, man. And as far as employees go, and companies, we have an extremely hard time hiring people that are faithful just to show up for work. And she hasn't missed a day yet. Someone's always there. And so it's amazing. We truly believe in the business model that you guys have set up, and I can attest for it firsthand because I've been skeptical about hiring people for 10 years now. And that's just something about it makes us feel comfortable.
One of the things about the business model of the ministry, and this is one thing that's attracted me to it, and also I think it's attracted other businesses, other funders too. The way Hope Center is set up with our partnerships with these vocational training partners, it helps. And you've got to, it's just like a business. You've got to be financially stable on it. That's what helps me keep the lights on. That's what helps me keep the doors open. That pays our water bill and all the little bills and food on the table and things. That model is working. I truly believe it was divinely inspired. I truly do. So that helps there. The other thing too, as you said, it influences that business. It helps in that area. Our men and women, the way the program is set up, they're going to be there. They're going to be on time. We do random drug testing. If somebody does test negative, it doesn't mean they're out of the program right away. You're going to have that serious talk with them, and they may be sent to another center. They may be started over, or each one is addressed during that time. They're not going to be going to work out there. We cover the workers' compensation during that time period, which our expense on workers' comp, I think it was over $1 million last year because of the number of vendors we had out there. But I'm not going to say it's perfect. We've been working with Stevens Sausage now for probably going on 4 years. We make up about 30% of their workforce over there.
Wow.
Either current residents or graduates. And that's what I love. It's great when you can put yourself out of business with a VT partner because they're sticking and staying.
Yeah.
I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But there's been situations where they've called in the morning and I could always tell somebody's not doing somebody's not where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there, doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're there. And so you address that. But it's not widespread. It truly isn't. The vocational training it's like the ones with your business. That creates a standard.
Yeah.
It creates a culture. Mm-hmm. And when she comes back, it's like, man, you get to go to this nice place up there and you're taken care of. It's not a sweatshop.
That's, I think that was important too. When talking with the lady at Hope Center here, who's I guess in charge, Miss Jackie. She says my goal is not to just get them employed somewhere. I want to find somewhere where they can be proud that they're going to work and they can get some skills and And that, for us, that was amazing. You know, you just stick them down there at the McDonald's or something. I mean, I know that's a job too, but man, these just because they're in Hope Center doesn't mean they don't have skills already. You know, they're people just like us, and that you're taking the time to find out what those are and then match them with a local business where they can end up with a career is amazing.
Skill sets are all over the place.
All over.
We've had deputy sheriffs graduate from the program. I'll say none of Steve Bizzle's have. I always share that, particularly if he's in there.
Yeah.
But we've got school teachers in there. We actually have a former Wake County school teacher in the program right now. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's working.
Then what are some different ways then that people can get involved, whether you're individual or a church or a business?
There's different ways. We'll talk about the businesses first off. Businesses is being a vocational training site, and to do that, they'd have to reach out to myself or Jackie, one of the staff members here, and we would sit down and kind of go over things. We share about how it works, expectations on both sides. So that's one opportunity, and other opportunities with businesses is obviously financial support. But the other thing too. One thing, and I'll use this example, the house here in Wilson's Mills, which is a beautiful home. Both of y'all have been there. And our new construction sites that we have going on in Dunn, and also the Family Life building in Goldsboro. There has been so many companies and trades that have come to the table with what we refer to as a gift in kind.
Yeah.
You know, there's a large concrete company up in Raleigh, and I'll say it's Raleigh East Concrete.
Yeah.
And Robert Parvin, I met him 6 months ago, or maybe even longer than that. We started talking. He asked what he was doing or what I was doing, and he said, "Oh, we're building some schools in Johnston County." He got connected with our construction person here, and they provided all the concrete for both those buildings.
Wow.
And that's a huge savings.
Yeah,
That's funding that can go back to the program. Things like that. And it doesn't have to be that. It can be, there's companies, there's businesses, restaurants that'll call and they'll have, a catering that gets canceled due to weather or something. Food. Our food bill is kind of high.
I bet, man. I bet.
Things like that. In the other areas, as far as volunteering, you can become a scheduled counselor. And when I say scheduled, it's kind of like Susan, my wife, where she's there 2 days a week or 3 days a week. It doesn't take, and that's a big commitment. It doesn't take that type of commitment. It can be just calling and say, "Hey, we'd like to come by and visit with the ladies." When we have family days out there, one Saturday a month. They're big events. Families come out. We do fishing and things, and swimming, and just cook it out and all. Come and join in that. Come help us cook some steaks.
Yeah.
Or some burgers or hot dogs and things. Just getting involved. The other area with churches is when your church has an activity in the community. It's kind of like what y'all experienced at Johnston Union with the Easter egg hunt. And it's like I mentioned at Amelia Church with the Christmas tree lot. Consider having some of our men and women out there to help serve alongside. I don't send them out as, the free labor is showing up.
Right.
It's you go out there and you get connected with somebody. And an example is there's a civic organization, the Civitans here in Clayton. Old organization, very active, do a lot of sports leagues and things. They're like a lot of us. A lot of the members have aged and they do some pretty big, amazing things. We started about 3 or 4 years ago when they do things in the community, or they do their big barbecues or their reverse raffles, or even getting ready for their sports leagues. Some of our guys will go out there and help them. And what's happened is our men and people in that Civitan club have become known to each other. They see them in the community. What better mentors than leaders when they're out there and they're standing alongside, leaders in the community and business leaders or people that raised a family, veterans. What better connection can they have on both sides? But all I'll say is just consider Hope Center. Just
what a
give
great
us
idea.
shot.
I mean, you don't even have to be a big church to do things like that. In fact, what benefit would that be if you are a smaller church and you don't have so many hands and you want to do something, have an event?
Yep.
Call the Hope Center. Let them help you out.
That's how you can get involved. It doesn't matter if you're a church, a business, or just an
Yeah.
individual. Do it, because it's like Robin said. It's not that you're blessing somebody else. You're going to get blessed.
Yeah.
I can make that promise.
Absolutely.
You really will.
One thing I've always tried to stay away from, and when we go into a new community, we have to go through codes and zoning, and it's the thought is, oh, not in my backyard. And I would have been the same way 15 years ago. I would have said, just leave the drugs and alcohol alone. If you don't have a job, if you're homeless, get a job. All
Too
these
bad.
things
Yeah.
would go
Right.
away.
Yes.
And there is some merit to that. There truly is. And that's, even when I speak to the men, that when I go and talk in the prisons, I tell them they've got to step up to their game when they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to do their part too.
Yeah.
But just getting our folks out there in the community, giving them that opportunity to step up to the plate is what makes it work.
I tell you that the evidence of that is that they're at the Hope Center in the first place,
Right,
voluntarily.
exactly.
They're not held there against their will. There's been a vetting process. There are absolutely standards that I have seen that they have to maintain in order to maintain residency, and we have no issues at all with the people that we've seen. I mean, we were at the First Priority meal, and you guys did. How awesome was that? I show up at First Priority, and well, look, there's Hope Center. And it seems like now that I'm aware of Hope Center, everywhere I turn, there's Hope Center doing something else, and it's great.
One thing you said when I was referring a while ago to going through codes and zoning and not in our backyard, and the identity. One of the things, once we navigate through that process, what the identity you want to have in the community is, not that's that house for the addicts. That's that rehab facility. What I like it is just like what you just said. You go to an event in the community and they say, that's Hope Center.
There.
That's Hope Center.
Uh-huh.
That's Hope Center. And yes, sometimes it's going to be messy. I'm going to tell you that it's going to be messy. It is a free will place. You're there on your own free will. We do have some folks that are there as an alternative to incarceration, though, where we work with the court systems. But I'll go and I'll speak with a man or woman sometimes if they are in the detention center. And sometimes after speaking with them, I'm pretty blunt. I'm probably the toughest one on, it's not the get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll say to them, you might just want to stay here and do your 12 months here.
Right. Yeah.
Your next 18 months will be easier here than it is there, and all, because not everybody's ready. They've got to want it more than anybody else.
Right. Yep.
More than their mama or their daddy or
I think
their
that
loved one.
from what I've seen, that is another huge difference. So with our family members that have gone through, they went, but it was almost because we were, hey, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was not very much a voluntary thing. And then at that point you can almost fake it till you're done with the program. And then
Just check the box.
Just check the box. So, man, this is great information. We could go on like forever. I got lots of questions. But how can people then contact you or Hope Center if they need some more information about themselves or a loved one that's interested? Or
Probably the best thing is just text me or call me.
Okay.
And I can give you my phone number. It's
Sure.
919-210-4421. And if they reach out to me, I'll make sure, if I cannot handle it, I'll get them in touch with the right person, such
Okay.
as their admissions coordinator or a director of that local center, to speak with you even more in depth about vocational training, volunteering, things
Okay.
like that.
Is it okay if I put that number in the show
It
notes
is.
too? Yeah.
Reach out to me, text me, call me, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great. You got anything else you want to add to it? So, yeah. So just like closing notes then I put down so I wouldn't forget, because I think these are awesome things that I didn't know. Just wanted to mention these. If you feel like you'd like to partner with Hope Center and you just want to check them out, then call you up and say, hey, when can I come visit? Stop by and hang out. And that'll change your whole perspective right there off the bat. Yep. These facilities that you have, these houses, man, they are nice places, man. And everybody that I have met has been awesome. They love it when you show up. You don't have to worry about being a licensed professional or anything, right? No psychologist or anything, but if you got a heart for helping others, I believe Hope Center is like a fantastic opportunity that anyone could be able to share the love of Jesus with each other. I think it's great to witness and testimonies. Don't discount the impact that you can have on somebody's life just by spending some time with them, I guess is the final point.
Exactly. And I want to add just one thing too. And, as far as this podcast and I'm hearing from from both of you, Robin and David. You guys are talking about it, and you gave us this opportunity to come share, but both of y'all are doing it. David, you and Julie are there. You're at the center. Your company is there. They're helping. Robin, you and Nicole are there. It's not just, you guys aren't just talking about it by witnesses of it. Y'all been immersed in it.
Yes.
And I appreciate that, because there is a difference.
Well, there is. And I would just add to that, from the time I learned about Hope Center a few years ago until today, what I knew in the very beginning is not what Hope Center was at all.
Right.
In fact, it is so much more and more and more better. You know what they say? and then what I had been told or, led to believe that Hope Center wasn't. It's amazing. And so, like I said, don't hesitate just to reach out to Mark, schedule some time where you can just go hang out. You didn't have to be at this lady's house in Wilson Mills. You got them. I mean, there's all over here and locally. Go hang out with them and just see how cool Hope Center really is, man.
We have a men's house coming to Selma too.
Yeah. That's cool. Brother Mark, thanks for being here with us, man.
Appreciate it, man.
I really enjoyed it.
Fun.
Yeah. Y'all got anything else?
Nope.
All right, folks. We're out. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to another episode of the League of Logic podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate Brother Mark being here with the Hope Center. What a great place, man. If you'd like some more information on that, we'll have some notes in the show note where you can contact Brother Mark. You can also go to our website, leagueoflogic.com, where there's a contact us page, and you could send some questions, or we can get you in touch with each other then. Don't forget to check us out on all the social media platforms, X and Facebook and Rumble and all those. A like, a share, a subscribe, anything you can do to keep up with the channel and help us get the word out would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you got any questions or comments, man, we really would love to hear from you. We like those. We actually got some questions for next week we're going to talk about, and looking forward to getting into that. So hope you guys have a good week, and look forward to you tuning in on the next episode.